What's up guys, Houndish here, and today I wanted to jump in and talk about exotic weapons and armor to look out for as we go into year 2, of course beginning with the August 28th update for Destiny 2, and then the Forsaken DLC, which arrives on September 4th. So of course a lot of stuff is changing in Destiny 2, a lot of weapons are being reworked in the Sandbox, and this is going to affect the lethality of those weapons, the time to kill in PvP, and how powerful they are in PvE content as well. On top of this though, there are many exotic armor pieces which will actually synergize with the upgraded and buffed supers and subclasses that we'll be seeing, as well as the new subclass trees with the brand new supers. So we're going to talk about how some of the exotics are going to interact, some new potential uses for them, and like I said, some exotic weapons that are absolutely going to be worth trying out on August 28th when we get those Sandbox changes. So if you guys do enjoy the video, a rating below is very much appreciated. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit subscribe to see a lot more D2 content. But now, let's get into the video. So starting out, I wanted to talk about changes coming to weapons. A lot of weapons are going to be reworked, and one of the primary things that this will affect is time to kill inside of PvP. Time to kill is going to be decreasing, so essentially weapons will be stronger inside of PvP content. You're going to kill other players quicker, you're going to go down much quicker. And literally everything in the game is going to be affected by this, but based on the changes we know are coming, which actually bring the time to kill to a pretty similar place as what we had in Destiny 1, there are a few weapons we can pick out which have some interesting potential. So I want to start out with the Vigilance Wing. Of course, this is the 5-round burst pulse rifle. It's been a boss inside of the Crucible pretty much in every meta that we've had. Not that it's necessarily changed an absolute ton, of course, but this is a high impact frame pulse rifle technically, although it is a bit of a different case with the 5-round burst. But previously in an update, we actually saw high impact frame pulse rifles and the buff that they received affect the Vigilance Wing. Now, Vigilance Wing does have the potential to 2-burst right now in the Crucible. If you land all of those shots and you're hitting targets with low enough resilience, you're going to get those kills with 2 bursts in some cases. It's not a super consistent thing, however, it does have the potential to become a much more consistent 2-burst inside of PvP, especially if the changes to high impact frame pulse rifles are a kind of blanket effect, and that will include the Vigilance Wing. I don't think the idea of any of this Sandbox tuning is for exotics like Vigilance or Graviton Lance to continue to be absolutely the top weapons in the game as far as primaries go in a lot of cases, but nonetheless, Vigilance does have that potential, so definitely look out for it when those changes roll around. Another exotic weapon to mention would be the Mida Multi-Tool. Of course, this has always been pretty good in the Crucible, ever since Taken King, especially back in D1. Early on in Destiny 2, it was a pretty popular weapon as well. Of course, Mida always has the radar up, which definitely helps in D2 with the kind of slower zoom that you see. Mida right now is 5 taps to the head. I'm pretty sure it's going to be a 4-tap inside of PvP after the update. So we won't focus on it forever because it's a weapon that's been around for a very long time, but based on these changes, it certainly isn't likely to go anywhere. Next though, let's talk about scout rifles again. We do have the low rate of fire scout rifles. Now these don't see that much use because their time to kill isn't super competitive. This archetype has never been super competitive in Destiny PvP between either of the games, but with the time to kill changes that we're going to be seeing, weapons like Polaris Lance or the Jade Rabbit, and of course any of the legendary archetypes, should be going to a 3-tap in the Crucible, or at least theoretically they will end up being 3-tap in PvP. Doesn't necessarily mean they're going to become the next meta, but they certainly could be more prominent. A couple of other exotics to mention. Soros Regime. Auto rifles aren't too bad in Destiny 2. We don't know how time to kill changes will affect this weapon necessarily, but considering we are talking about exotics, it is worth a mention because we're also likely to get the catalyst for the Soros Regime, and that grants the weapon a much greater chance to actually regen on every single kill that you make. And that means you'll be able to get health regen on many of the kills that you actually make with the weapon, so if the time to kill works with it, it could be pretty popular. A weapon class that we haven't heard much about would be the Trace Rifles. These are actually going to be buffed in some way, so Bungie said they wanted to bring them closer in line with other second slot special type weapons. We don't really know the details of what's going to happen here, but I think they have the potential to be kind of nasty. It really depends what Bungie do, so don't sleep on them, at least give them a try after the update on the 28th. Those would be the main exotic weapons that I'd speak about. I am focusing on the primaries, because of course we are talking about time to kill. Aside from this, a bunch of weapons are going to be reslotted and moved around. And of course, we'll see time to kill changes on all of the legendaries in the game as well. But on the subject of exotics, I think we should talk about some exotic armor pieces, because some of them are going to be pretty interesting. So a lot of the classes are generally being buffed, but on top of this, we're also getting brand new subclass trees which bring new supers, and some of those have some interesting potential uses with exotics we have right now. So firstly, we have the Hallowfire Heart. We're seeing buffs to grenades, the cooldowns, and the damage that they do. So of course, in general, sitting on your super and having grenades much quicker, it could be that bit more kind of beneficial or potent with the new changes. On top of this though, with the ability to actually cool down all of your other abilities much faster when you're sitting on that super, it does have the potential to pair up a little bit with the new tree for the Hammer Titan. So we do have the Throwing Hammer. This actually replaces the regular melee ability. When you throw the hammer and pick it up, it will not only refill your melee ability completely, but it also activates a perk called Tireless Warrior, which triggers health regeneration instantly. As you kill enemies with the hammer or any other solar ability and then retrieve it over and over again, the Roaring Flames perk increases its damage output, stacking up to 3 times. So essentially, because of the bonuses that you'll be getting by using these hammers, the ability to refill your melee abilities, and the fact that any other solar ability will actually trigger this, it might, just might, turn into a slightly more decent exotic. We'll have to wait and see. Next though, for the Titan, we have Insurmountable Skullfort, and this one's going to be very interesting because we will be able to one-hit kill with Shoulder Charge inside of the Crucible. And when you're wearing the Insurmountable Skullfort, every time you get an arc melee kill, it will trigger health regen, but also restore melee energy. So you can essentially get a Shoulder Charge kill, it will regen your health, and then it will give you the melee back so that you could get another shoulder charge kill immediately. That's going to be pretty stinking good potentially. On top of this though, there is Seismic Strike from the new Striker subclass tree. This allows you to do the kind of shoulder slam into the ground, and this should also receive the same benefits. So in theory, whenever you do that shoulder slam, you will get health regen, and if you take targets out, you should essentially get it back. So there is some potential there. We should mention the Armamentarium for the Titan, of course, granting double grenades. Grenades are going to be charging faster as well. And so of course that simply equals more grenades plus more grenades. So it's one to consider. But then you do have Helm of Saint 14, could be pretty strong in PvE because bubbles will now take less damage, so they're essentially more reliable and less vulnerable. But melee damage inside of Ward of Dawn is being buffed considerably, and so Helm of Saint 14 also blinding enemies. Depending on the content, it could become that little bit more potent. Next though, let's talk about the Warlock. So we have the Crown of Tempests. Arc ability kills will increase the recharge rate of your arc abilities and extend the duration of your super. So a couple of mentions here. Once again, cooldowns are being reduced, and the arc ability kills increasing that recharge means that you can cool them down even further. On top of this, the Storm Trance super is being buffed, so it actually may be a bit more relevant in general. And then you do have Chaos Reach with the new Arc Warlock subclass, which has the opportunity to benefit from this because making kills with the super, of course, recharges other arc abilities. And from what we've seen, it looks like this super can actually be burnt down pretty quickly, but it does a lot of damage. So any way to extend the duration of it is definitely positive. Sunbracers will be pretty interesting as well. When you get a melee kill, you do get increased solar grenade duration, as well as a ton of grenade energy. But melee kills do grant unlimited solar grenade energy for a short time, and this links up a little bit with the new Solar Warlock, because of course you're going to be pretty incentivized to use your melee attack. The melee attack with the new subclass tree does burn enemies, but also buffs you and your allies, and you can also charge the solar grenades on the new Warlock to turn them into a Blessing Grenade, which heals and gives an overshield. So it's relatively self-explanatory. These do synergize pretty nicely together. I would also mention Eye of Another World very generically. Of course, it does give you faster cooldown of melee grenade and rift energy. You'll be able to stack this with the buffs that we're seeing in general and the new mods, which do considerably improve those cooldowns as well. Finally, we get to the Hunter. So Raiden Flux, this one has some very interesting potential. Once again, generic buffs to the class are always good, but quick successive attacks with Arc Staff will increase its damage output as well as its duration. There is potential that when you deflect attacks, it could actually trigger the perk on the Raiden Flux as an arc attack itself. And if it does that, of course, it does grant you bonus damage. So if you decide to use an attack, you will be getting that bonus damage, but also it keeps the super active for as long as possible. And if it's anything like what you normally see with Raiden Flux and a normal Arc Strider, then obviously the benefits will be pretty huge. So it's absolutely got to be tried out. I'd also mention Lucky Raspberry personally. You get another grenade charge recharge, and it does have the chance to recharge every time that it deals damage, so a full chain always recharges your grenade. Of course, more powerful grenades make this more consistent, so it does have the potential to become a little bit more potent. One I nearly forgot would be the Ophidia Spathe. So this grants 2 throwing knife charges, and it's potentially going to stack really well with the Way of 1,000 Cuts, the new gunslinger. So with that class, it allows you to throw an entire fan of knives by using the knife trick ability, which lights enemies on fire. Whenever they're burning, the burning edge will fill up your dodge, and then the bonus called Playing with Fire will actually grant you energy for the knife trick ability once again if you manage to kill the burning enemies. And so essentially, having the 2 knife charges is going to work pretty nicely with this. We don't know how potent this ability set will really be, but the signs do indicate that it's going to be pretty interesting, so another one not to sleep on. And then I should mention the Graviton Forfeit. Whenever you score a precision kill with a new Void subclass for the Hunter, the Flawless Execution perk will grant you invisibility and True Sight, which allows you to actually look through walls. On top of this, you can also go invisible during the super, and the Graviton Forfeit allows the invisibility to last longer, but also charges your melees quickly while you're invisible. And these are just a few of the exotics that are going to have some potential synergy, the ones that will be a little bit more interesting, but who knows what else we might figure out or discover along the way. I just wanted to kind of break down the pieces of gear which are going to be most kind of influential with the changes that we're seeing, and those which have some interesting potential. So I'd love to hear your thoughts down below if you're thinking of any exotics you really want to try out after the update on the 28th. I hope this brief list has been useful, some stuff to kind of play around with. It's going to be a very huge kind of shift to the meta in a number of different areas in the game, so there's going to be a lot of discovery of kind of new ways to play and interact with this stuff. So let me know your thoughts, as I said, but if you have enjoyed the video, guys, a like below is very much appreciated. If you're new to the channel, feel free to hit subscribe and turn on notifications if you want to keep up to date with everything related to Destiny 2 and the Forsaken expansion. For now, though, I appreciate you tuning in as always, and whatever you guys get up to, I hope you have an awesome day.